For the nice introduction. Oh, okay, great. Hello, my name is Kazz Morohashi. I am a visual artist, and just in June, I moved back together with my husband and my doggy to LA, where I grew up. So I will, let me see, wait, oh, I got it, that you're recording. And then I just want to, here we go. So thank you for joining the workshop. It's a real fun and privilege to be here today and share the space with you. It's about creating an ethnographic doodle. And I just wanted to quickly introduce myself. On a daily basis, I work a lot as a visual designer and an experience designer. And so what that is I do everything from illustration and web design and publication design, even logos on occasions and branding. So it's a bit of a mixed bag. And then I also work with clients on designing different kind of experiences. And these are more in-person experiences, which is great, especially after the whole pandemic. But as we're coming together, and I always emphasize the fact that, you have user experience design, interaction design in the field, which is a lot about designing websites and apps and how people engage with technology. But ultimately, I always think that it's good to be on the field and working with actual real people and seeing what people do and just using that everyday kind of immersed lived experience and build that up before you can begin to understand what people might do behind a screen. And as part of my practice, that kind of developed over time, of course. And initially, I studied art history. I worked, so this just to give you, oops, here we go. Just to give you a little bit of an overview of how I came to where I am today. I was born in Japan. I grew up in Los Angeles. And then I went and did most of my working life in Norwich, where the Norwich University of the Arts is. And that's where I went to do my MA in visual communication. I think at that time it was, I think it is still called communication design. And I worked on a project of trying to see how children and families engage in museum space. So it kind of evolved from there, from a master's, and that turned into a PhD program where I continued to look at how, how we can design interaction, design experience of what people do. So my role, more or less in a nutshell, is that I make things to make people do things just a little bit better. And if that works, then I'm very, very happy. And then, so kind of going into what I do and the kind of the core of this workshop is about doodling. I like the term doodle. I know that, traditionally when you're trying to kind of get into the field of illustration and so forth, you want to use, big terms like illustrations or graphic novels and things like that. But it's very much, for me, doodling is a very, very free space to experiment and to explore the way we see the world. So there is no right or wrong. There is no distinct, format. You don't have to think about, well, where am I gonna, put the corporate logo or anything like that. But it is a very, very free space. So that's kind of why I suggested, I'd really like to do this workshop about doodling, because it is a bit of an art in itself. It also is a fun activity. It just helps for me kind of distill a lot of what I see. And it's kind of maybe how I filter information. So I see the world in images and then words, feelings. So I combine the two to the way that makes sense to me. So it's a little bit of a free form activity. So this screen I have up here is kind of getting into how that evolves. So doodling can be a very private activity. So I have on the other camera, like, this is kind of what I'll do maybe if I'm sitting down somewhere. So we had to go sort out my husband's driver's license in the US. And then it's just being able to sit down at the DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles, and just watching people go by. I like the fact that some, it's these moments like airports or somewhere where people are just sitting there doing their own things, and you get to see how people just are. And a big guy with his pants hanging kind of, or trousers hanging a little bit low. You can kind of begin to see his underwear, all those little moments of realities. I just love to try to capture all that. And let's see. And this one, so I usually start off with like these very loose sketches, and sometimes like I'll make notes for myself, like for this guy, I think, sorry, my dad's just sneezing, like wearing white shirts and gray. So I didn't have color pencils or anything. So sometimes I'll just kind of scribble down notes, just so if I wanted to kind of develop this into a more sort of structured image, then I have all my little info right there to hand. And then, so the screen you have here in front of you, this is a project that we just finished this weekend. There's a museum called the Getty Museum in California. And it's basically, the collection is of this one oil tycoon named J. Paul Getty. He amassed a lot of artwork in his lifetime, and that became a museum. It originally started in this villa in the beautiful seaside, overlooking the beautiful sea, the Pacific Ocean in Malibu, but then they moved it into a new site up on the Santa Monica Hill, and that's called the Getty Center. So they've just celebrated their 25th anniversary, and for that, they worked with a lot of community groups to try to engage more people into the arts, and also hopefully, come visit the Getty Museum. And for this, it kind of, we wanted to, we started off with a doodle. And to give you a little bit of a background, we went on a walking tour. A friend, it's a project partner, Mario Ibarra Jr., he's an artist too. And we said, okay, well, let's do something about the community, about J. Paul Getty and the community, and how we could all tie that so that people doing something will also know what it's all about, rather than just a free activity where they come and go and, don't know why they did what they did. So we did a walking tour of this park where the Getty Festival was going to happen. And this was a historic park with a lot of small details that people can kind of easily overlook. So we wanted to draw the attention back to that. And also we kind of left this white big blank, and I forgot the order of my slides, which I'll show you how that kind of works out. But, this is a kind of a completed piece. And it really started off really scrappy and scratchy. So in my desk screen, you'll kind of see that I even worked with like a different format. I was first going for like this diamond shape, and I thought, oh, maybe like that way I could split the image into 4. But then, so you'll kind of see that I go through various different stages. And it's all very, very quick. I kind of thought, oh, or maybe do we do it in like a blurb shape, or structure it, how to lay it out. But eventually I thought, okay, well, we're going to do a scavenger hunt. So let's just actually make it into this big sweeping map. And this is kind of the underdrawing that led to this final image. So oftentimes what I'll do is I'll really begin with a very, very loose doodle illustration on paper. I'm not very good at starting directly on digital tablets or on the screen, but I still like the paper and pencil. And then you can kind of see that a lot of the images, they're just blobs of people. They're not even like, they just look like keyhole people. There are people kissing. There's a person standing on the rock. That's just a little kind of blobby people. And that's where it all kind of starts. And once I kind of figure out where I want to take it, then I'll start working on, and I usually use my tablet, my iPad with a pen and then kind of go from there. Yeah, let me see if I can move to the, oops, well, we'll get back to that. In the end, we did this map, and I was talking to Liv and Nuala about it, but we kind of did it as a black and white map. It worked out kind of great at the end because it allowed the kids to come in and claim it as their own. They would use it as a coloring sheet as well. So this girl, basically it's a scavenger hunt. So we said, okay, so in the park, there are lots of things and we want them to use different senses, the sight, the scent, the hearing, the, what else did we do? The scent, oh, the texture, you know, like rub things and feel how they feel and try to capture that on the back of the paper. And they would go around and they find all these spots. So she found them all, and all the things she found, which she did manage, she colored them in, and it became this kind of really nice, bright image. And it transformed from this gray map into this really colorful one. And then in the middle is of the park is Phineas Banning's house. Phineas Banning was an important figure in the area because he made Wilmington City into this big port city. Before that, it was a bit of a marshland. And so, but then a lot of people didn't know who lived there. So the history was a little bit forgotten. And so we said, okay, what are the tasks? It's the final big, you know, big scoring point here is that if you find out who lives in this house, you get a big stamp at the end. And so people did go find out. They came back, told us, oh yeah, who lived there, and they managed to get a stamp. And it kind of also creates as an experience, you know, we want to design what's called onboarding and offboarding. So when they come on board with us, they get a map, an explanation, and a way to look around to kind of like plug them into this whole game that we wanted them to play. And offboarding, we wanted them to kind of go away from us feeling like they've accomplished great things. And stamps are always, stamps and stickers, they're always a great way to sort of say, great job, thank you so much for coming and doing it, and here's something from us. And they go away into their next journey, happy and hopefully feeling pretty satisfied. So hopefully that kind of got you into a little bit of what ethnographic doodling might mean. To break down the word, it's a term that I think I kind of came up with because I had to come up with something, and it fit the bill. But basically, ethnography is a study of people and culture, mainly through observation. And doodling is, for me at least, an informal image making. Ethnography, it's used in a wide range of studies. So oftentimes you'll see it in sociology, where they study different cultures and communities. Psychologists might use it if they're looking at behavioral psychology and trying to understand groups like business groups, you know, so certain companies might have a certain culture. Well, what culture is that? And so they'll have like an ethnographic study. And this could mean that you might be within that group interacting, or you could just be like quite literally observing. So just sitting and just watching things. So like people watching, you know, I love to do that. That is partly ethnography. If you are focused on trying to understand, let's say you're, you know, working for a coffee shop or something, or your client is a coffee shop, and say, well, I don't know, we just feel like it's always chaotic, we don't understand. So then experienced designers might go away, just sit there and just see how the workflow is, different times of the day. Is it really crowded? How's the line forming? What are people doing in that line? Do they have anything to look at, or are they just like really frustrated because there's nothing to do, there's a long line, and you're really, really dying for that coffee before you get to work or to school, or, you know, wherever you're going. So that's kind of really, really just looking, but also thinking about what is happening. It's always that asking why, you know, what is happening? Why is it happening? How is it happening? So it's that kind of observing and inquiring. Doodling is very straightforward. And I think I have some examples of that that I showed earlier. But then you kind of think, okay, so, you know, ethnography is great. It's a very sort of focused way of looking at a situation. But why is it so important to bring, why can't we just document it down? You know, we could just say, 30 people came in 10 minutes to the coffee shop, blah, blah, blah. You can build a data, a text-based statistical data. But, you know, this is kind of what science apparently says about, you know, why are visuals so powerful? And it says 50% of your brain is involved in visual processing, and you have all these percentages of why it's so interesting. But if you can see, you know, okay, so that's all great, but once, you know, it's really hard to process that information. But once you kind of have that image to say, okay, it's just a picture of a side profile and a blobby thing that's supposed to represent a brain, but all of a sudden you're beginning to see in color, you're beginning to see in shapes, you're beginning to see numbers made bigger in, you know, in a contrast color, blue, yellow against blue, and things are popping out. And somehow this, for me at least, this image is a lot easier to kind of begin to pay attention to the information than looking at the left side of the screen where it's a lot of information. There are many, many types of this kind of illustration image making. You might hear words like sketch notes and graphic recordings. This is a kind of, I think, ethnographic illustration where people are listening to something or listening. So this often happens in like meetings where you might have people talking about a theme, and then you have an illustrator off to the side of the presenter who will be kind of illustrating what is being talked about. And also writing and illustrating together. So to create a note, but a sketch note, an illustrated note. You'll have other people who make visual diaries, or and these are like maybe your daily things that have happened, and you can just kind of capture those moments that are sort of highlights, whether it be good thing or bad thing or kind of interesting thing, or I don't know why that happened, but it just kind of stuck with me moments. So I'd be curious to see what happened to Azel's life here, where she felt like she was drinking something that tasted so magical. It was a kind of a life changing, transporting kind of experience in a bottle. So what that she was drinking, I'd love to know. And an expanded version of that might be something like graphic novels. Graphic novels, just like text-based novels, they range in themes, but of course it can also evolve as something that's being observed, laid out over many, many pages into a certain narrative, certain storyline. And this is one of my favorite heroes, Mauro Martins, and he does what's called, and he calls it like doodle-based illustration or doodle-style illustrations. And his images are great. He also works in a very similar fashion where he'll take kind of an idea. He works for many, many amazing clients, and he will go out and just kind of like grab all these images and then combine them all together in this beautiful, beautiful and kind of, I don't know, collage of different bits of images. Oftentimes he will use words in kind of as a focal point and build images around it. So that's kind of one style of doing it. And we'll come back to something like Mauro's doing and looking at how we might be able to incorporate that as part of, you know, like big text as part of your drawing. So I think I rambled a little bit long enough, and without it becoming a talking head, let's actually get started. So hopefully you might have a few pieces of paper. You can just use like some scrap papers also. It doesn't have to be pristine paper, but just to have some sort of writing utensils around it. Or is everybody okay with that? Do you have pieces of paper? We're gonna need about 4 pieces of paper in this workshop, a pen or pencil, and just if you're interested. Usually I use kind of these types of things in the beginning. So ordinary just pencils. So this is a mechanical pencil. Sometimes I I'll use this one, which is a 4B, so a darker lead. Hopefully that might make it easier for you to see. But generally I use like I don't know what these mechanical pencils are called, but it's got a bigger lead than the normal one. And it's got a sharpener. So it just means that I can pop these in my bag without, you know, feeling like it's gonna rub all over if I carry a normal pencil. I don't know if you've come across these guys. These are called non-photo blue pencils. Traditionally, they would be used for editors, also animators. Non-photo blue is a very pale blue leaded pencil. And you can use these to do your initial sketches. And when you put it on a photocopy machine, that won't pick up this blue. So it's great for making under drawings, like sketches, and then going over with like an ink pen or something, put it on the photocopy machine and run it. And provided you're coloring in black and white, not color copy, the machine won't pick up the blue. So you don't have to erase the non-photo blue pencil markings. And it makes it just an easy way to do it. There's also a red pencil, and that makes them stronger marks. So animators oftentimes will do the initial, you know, the circle to sort of make the head, the body, the legs kind of shapes. And then they might go with the red pencil to do more the fine kind of near finishing lines. And then they'll go back with an ink to do the final lines. So kind of a 3-step process. It might sound like a lot of work, but actually it's, once you get into it, you know, it's not that much hard work. And if you think about having to erase lines, especially after you inked it and you're trying to get that line out, you might smudge the ink, or you might rub a little bit of that paper out. So these are really kind of handy if you are evolving your doodles or drawings into something more final, like an inked drawing. Okay, so okay, so we're going to begin by kind of a warm-up exercise. Oftentimes when I do show illustrations, some people might say, well, I don't know how to draw. And it's so easy for you to say because you could just draw whatever, but not true, actually. According to Dan Rome, he is somebody who come up with just very easy way to understand real life problems. And he's got a book called The Back of a Napkin. And he teaches us how to draw very easily. So taking one piece of paper, I'd like you to take your pencil and just draw what's on the screen. So we're going to just draw a square. And then a circle. Triangle. A line. And a blob. That's it. So, but then he says, no, you know, and these basically form a very easy way to draw people. So as you saw in my sketch, my people initially are very, very simple shapes. So he's saying that, okay, well, you know, the circle can become just the head, and you can use like kind of emoji inspired expressions to draw what these people are feeling, and you can do just a stick figure. So if you can draw maybe one happy guy who is coming to say hello, to maybe what would a sad person look like? Maybe he's a little bit bummed out. I don't know, maybe his sandwich wasn't as yummy as he thought. And then maybe another blob head guy to sort of say, oh my God, I'm not really, I don't know, what else could we say? Do feel free to put in your chat your inspiration. Maybe somebody is feeling a bit smug, maybe just won like a small lotto ticket. And then one person is feeling surprised. Oh my God, you want a ticket? Oh, give me some money. And then as you're drawing the people, you can see in Dan's drawing, but also using the lines. So if you're drawing just a normal standing person, you might just draw a straight line for the spine, straight legs, straight arms. yoga pose. Okay, but then if somebody is bummed out, let's do the bummed out guy. You can use the line, but not so straight. If you draw it in an arc, kind of coming out of his head, and then his knees are also bent, you know, and his arms just dangling down. So you can use the line in different, just straight or arc or really kind of a hyper arced way to start to begin to kind of express the body language. So if you're not really confident, you tend to sort of curl inwards. If you're really relaxed or tired, you might start to, you know, kind of lean backwards. So you can draw these lines in different arcs to express those. Okay, so moving on to the square, let's draw some people. And this is kind of an expanded form of that line. So if you may imagine that line was just one, but if you fatten that line out, you can get kind of a square or rectangle. So you can also, again, put a blob or a circle for the head. And then still carrying on with the stick arm and legs. You can do your happy people, surprise people, and then let's also try like, rather than a rectangle in a very kind of two of the same length of lines, try putting one line and a parallel line that's a little bit bigger. So it's kind of almost like, what shape would that be? Let's see, something like that. So rather than a square where it's the equidistance or equal length, you can shorten one and extend the other one to kind of get like a bell shape. I kind of like these people because it, you know, for most of us, our hips get a little bit broader, and that creates a lot more kind of an animated look. And then you can use little blobs. So in Dan's drawings, he kind of uses these star people with round heads. He even uses square as a head too. And he's saying that you can begin to use these blob people to create relations, a sense of relations. And 3 dots on the camera. Oh yeah, okay, sorry. So you can try those people also. They're like starfish people. So I will also do like a circle, but not connect the circle at the end. And then you can have these arms like a kind of a tired starfish. And then it begins to look a lot like humans. And then again, I could make the arms flap droop down, and then in a similar way to the way that I arc the line, I could arc one side of the starfish's body. So that becomes, and then sometimes, you can, oh, maybe this one looks like it's dancing. Hula hoop. So you can add a hula flower. Yeah. So how are people doing? Are you getting your little blob figures going? I think. Oh, I don't know. Maybe Liv, if people want to kind of share that on Padlet, maybe if you could explain that bit.
Yeah, of course. So we are using something called Padlet today. So hopefully if you joined last week, then you'll be very familiar with Padlet. But for those of you that aren't, I'm just going to share my screen very quickly to give you a little bit of a demonstration.
Stop sharing here. Okay, you go.
So hopefully you should all be able to see our Padlet board, and there's a QR code up on the screen there. So Nuala will be dropping the link to the Padlet board in the chat for you. So you can either click directly on the link, or you could get out your mobile phone and scan the QR code that you can see on screen. That will then pop up with a little link that you can click on your phone, and it will take you directly to the Padlet board. So that's quite handy. If you are working with pencil and paper, then you can just take a photo photo of what you've drawn and upload it directly on your phone to the Padlet board. And then to upload, you're looking for the little pink button on the screen here. If you click on that, then you'll just need to upload using one of the icons here, whichever is easiest for you. So you can click the upload button there, or you could take a picture directly from the Padlet board. And then you can kind of put a note on here if you'd like to. If you'd like to put any information on there for us, then please do. Any context or any kind of notes that you think are appropriate to explain what you've been doodling, that would be wonderful. And we will be using images that have been uploaded to Padlet, potentially on social media, but also for the accompanying worksheet that we'll be making for the workshop. So if you would prefer that we don't use your artwork, then please do drop a note in your upload in the comments, and then we'll be sure not to use it. But if there's no note, then we'll be sharing away because we'd love to share your work as part of today's session. So I can see lots of people's work is being uploaded already, so that's brilliant. So I'm going to stop sharing now and hand back over to Kazz.
Oh, they were really good. Wait, okay, so what do I do? Okay.
There's so many great ones appearing already. So I really like Bryony's. That's lovely, Bryony. Some great examples.
Let me just, okay. Where am I? Where am I? Oh, where am I? Oh, that disappeared. Good. Sorry. Oh, there we go. Can you see my screen?
I can. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Great. So hopefully we're kind of warmed up in our fingers and trying to get some figures drawn. Let's now go into actually making, this is still kind of warm up number 2, kind of your own ethnographic doodle. But to do that, let's kind of do a very quick exercise of what it might feel like. Yeah. So we're going to take another sheet of paper. We're going to fold it into 3s, but then you don't have to do it equally. So as you can see in the slide, maybe just like the top, if you fold your paper about an inch or I don't know, 2-3 centimeters down, and just create, move these, it might be easier to look at. And then the bottom bit, just fold up to the edge of that paper. Does that make sense? Basically, so long as you have kind of 3 sections with the top being a little bit small, because we won't need to fill that much in at the top, that's perfect. Usually, you'll have a theme. So let's just kind of write theme. And then we'll begin this kind of work, warm up number 2 with a very broad theme. So let's do park, because I've just done a project about a park. So I'll just write park, and then we'll move into the second bit. And we're going to come up with some words that come to your mind, word list. And what I like to do is spend maybe 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Let's do 3 minutes. Just start to fill in this section of the paper with whatever words that come to your mind when you think about park. So let's start now. It could be the things you see, like maybe swings. Could it be animals? I don't know. Worms. It can be the people you might see. It could be the smell. So just carry on thinking about what other things you might imagine when you think about the same park. And as you go through this, I'll just kind of keep talking and doing things too. Trees. Now, this is a stage where if you're observing, then you obviously, hold on one second. Oh yeah, that's where my, okay, so I was gonna use a timer, but of course I'm using my phone as a second camera, so I will use, watch me emerge from the palm trees. So I think we got 1 minute down. oftentimes like you'll be observing wherever you are, but actually sometimes I often do like one day of just going out into the field, seeing what's happening. Other times I will just go back home and start to look at, like, go online, Google images. And then if I find an image I like, I might then start to read up on it. So ethnography could just mean observation, but it also means that you can kind of go home and start building more information in your brain. So it's doing a little bit more of research rather than just looking and trying to capture everything, because that could be overwhelming too. So it's a bit of combination. So don't feel like you have to be somewhere to observe. You can actually observe through your memory. It's called sometimes reflection, but also you can go to the library to look up more information about certain things. And that's all part of your research. Okay, how are we doing? We're gonna do maybe another 30 seconds more. Hopefully you have, I'll do some too, Lise. I'll just shut up and do some too.
And then it would be really nice that some of you, if you're feeling up to it, you could type up some of your word list for us so we can see all of the different words you've come up with to do with the theme of park. So we can do a bit of a comparison to see if you've come up with similar words or some that are different, because everybody's kind of reflective memory that Kazz has mentioned will be slightly different of a park. And maybe you're thinking of a specific park that means something to you. So we've already got some in the chat. So interesting to see the first two words that came through in the chat were kids. So really interesting there that both of you thought the same there. So we've got toys, sand, slides, ducks, dogs, park bench, council bins, litter, horse rider, bench, pond, trees, more dogs, dog walkers, a seesaw. I used to love the seesaw. Swings, grass, children, animals, birds, benches again, noise. So there's some really common themes here, but also some of you coming up with things. I think the horse rider is quite interesting. So you might be thinking of a particular place where there's horses. So it's really interesting to see. Oh, and then Lucy has put in childlike color palette, which is very interesting.
That's very, yeah. And that's kind of like indicative of a certain period too, isn't it? Because I remember in my park, all the colors were really bright and garish. And then now they're going for like really more sophisticated colors.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Fantastic. I'm so glad that people are having like all these images come to them. So then, as you can imagine, the last section is going to be then kind of practicing some of the words into converting them into images. So we're going to do some doodles on the bottom one. So there are lots of like really good suggestions coming up. Could you rotate your camera so we can see the paper? Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Wait, what? This meeting is being continue. Let me see if I'm sorry, I don't have one of those like really cool. Is that better?
I think that's better. And then just a reminder for people, I've already mentioned in the chat that you can click those little 3 dots and it will pin it, which will mean it's the bigger image on your screen. So when we get fully into kind of doodling, that'll be really useful for you all to see Kazz's sketches as well. So do make sure to do that.
Yeah, and please, whatever you notice, please put it in the chat and we'll try to fix everything so that it's easiest for you. Okay, so let's take another 3 minutes and then practicing our doodle people or our blob people and some of the words that you've come up with. And it's just 3 minutes, so we won't get through all the words, but just pick out the things that strike you and then try to kind of illustrate them. So let's begin starting now. We did people. So I might draw a person And then
So
we
we've
saw a
just
lot of
had,
stuff.
I'm just going to interrupt for 1
Mhm.
second, Kazz. So someone has popped in the chat that they're not too sure on how to kind of pin the video. So if you hover over where Kazz is appearing on screen, so you can see Kazz has got 2 cameras. So you might have to scroll through the little thumbnail images to find the one that says Kazz iPhone. And then if you hover over that, you should find a little icon appears with the 3 little dots. And if you click onto that, it should say pin video, and then that will kind of pop up as the main image on the screen. So hopefully you can find that, and you can play around with different settings. So you can kind of stretch the video if you choose to have it in kind of a grid view, and it very much depends on what device you're joining us on today. So if you're on a mobile phone, it might be slightly different, and I think you have to click a little icon in the top to make a drop-down menu appear. But have a play around, and whatever makes it more comfortable for you to be able to see Kazz's doodling, because it is very exciting to watch.
So I'm just doing, I did a dog walk. So sometimes you can expand on your doodle people, blob people, and like, how would I draw a dog? So I started off with one of my favorite breeds, dachshunds. So it is just drawing an oval for the body. It's kind of just a long dog, isn't it? So I can do it as a rectangle. I'm going to do 2 ovals, different sizes, a droopy kind of ear that is another oval. I might fill that in, a circle nose, an eye, and then I'm just going to give it stick legs, and then a tail. And then maybe she's holding the other dog that's sniffing the tennis players. And then like a racket. Racket is just another circle with like lots of lines for the mesh. Is that what it's called? And a stick for the handle. What else did we see in the list? Swings. So swings. And again, here, sometimes you might come up with a word and you're thinking, wait, how did a swing look like? And again, this is where I would go to like image sources. So Google or other sort of search engines, type in swings and see, oh, it's just this kind of thing with like a plank. So just a rectangle with 2 lines off from a bar. Okay. Now, when you have, let's kind of wrap up. If you do have some, let's please share on Padlet, because this is kind of a fun time to sort of see how people are going. Do I stop sharing?
So we haven't had anyone upload theirs just yet. So
Oh, okay.
we'll give them just a second. I was very excited that I saw in someone's list that they'd put dog poop. So I'm intrigued to see. I'm intrigued to see whether they've done their dog poop doodle and whether that's going to appear on the Padlet board.
Yeah.
So let me just refresh my
Hopefully a
screen.
nice petite one, you know, not like.
But Kazz also has a very cute dog called Freddie. So if you joined last year's summer school, you would have seen Kazz made a zine all about Freddie. And I've noticed in your daily doodles, Kazz, there's occasionally some dog poop, isn't there?
There is, yeah.
It's inevitable.
Yeah.
Great.
It's
So we've had a few that have started appearing. So I'll just share my screen quickly so we can take a look at those. Here we go. So we've had a few starting to pop.
Oh, wow.
Let's have a look.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Cool.
Very cute. Oh no.
Oh no.
So sad when that happens.
I shouldn't laugh. Oh, I know that feeling. It's like
It's the worst, isn't it?
It's the worst.
Bad. Oh, cute. The dog poop. Lovely swings.
Yeah. Oh, like
Very nice.
happy days on the park bench. Yay. Oh, wow. Ooh. Ashtray on the bin. Yeah.
Very urban.
very urban park.
Oh, I love the little dog.
Oh yeah, on the pram. Wow.
Very nice. Great. So do keep uploading to Padlet throughout, and we'll be coming back to it occasionally to share your work. So back over to you, Kazz.
Okay, thank you. And this is where I kind of go, oh, share. Ooh, la, la. Okay. Right. Okay. So I think this is now your time. Let's take a brand new sheet of paper. And hopefully you still have kind of two left. So we'll take one. And if you wanted to fold this, great, because it just kind of helps break up the piece of paper into sections. If you don't need to do that, that's fine too. I kind of always like to play around with paper. So I'm going to fold mine a little bit, 2-3 centimeters at the top, and then bring the bottom bit up to that first fold, and then create my 3 sections. So this is really your time. So the theme, what kind of theme would you like to work on? And it could be something as simple as a park, or your favorite spot to sit and people watch. It could be something about school. What is it about school that you feel a certain way about? If you're working, you know, or have started to work, what kind of thing do you see at work that's always kind of made you wonder, it could be sort of about very personal things. So emotions that happen at a certain kind of thing. So if you go to a festival, you know, what do you see? What makes it so exciting? What makes it so kind of busy? Things like that. Or it can be kind of a broad and big theme. It can grow all the way to things like, okay, what do you think about climate change? And, you know, how are people discussing it? Or what are people doing about it? It can be about really anything. So spend like maybe 30 seconds thinking about what you might want to do. And for
And
here, you just think on your
Kazz,
own. Mhm.
we've already had some great suggestions in the
Oh,
chat.
have
So
you?
one that came in almost instantly was airport, which I think is a great theme. There are so many kind of exciting and also very boring things that you can draw in a very interesting way at an airport. So I think that's a great idea. We've also had, so Lucy has said a gallery or museum, and I also think that's a really great shout in that so many kind of galleries and museums do use illustration, like the Getty, for example, with Kazz, to bring the collection or literally the map of the museum to life. So that's a really great idea. And you can really look at how people engage with a collection, how they walk around a museum could be a really like interesting thing to draw, I think. So we've also had, Lucian has said farm, fight, zoo, we've had daydreams, which I really like the sound of. That could be super, super fun. School, fast food restaurants, university. I mean, we would love an ethnographic doodle of Norwich University of the Arts. That would be incredible. We've had cafe, the sky, monsters, all great suggestions. So many great themes coming through.
I like monsters. How do you observe a monster? Maybe it's like not the monster as in imagine, but like real life monster.
Oh, that is truly
Don't,
terrifying.
don't go down the rabbit hole where you're just like, you know, well, you can if you want to, but yeah.
Bryony is market.
Yeah.
I think markets is a really great idea because you could I'm thinking of Norwich Market, which for those of you who have been lucky enough to see Norwich in person, we have an amazing kind of open air market where there's so many different and interesting stalls, whether it's food, independent food places, through to people selling plants and flowers and vintage clothing. It's great for people watching, but also dog watching as well. So there could be so many great different things to draw in your doodle from a market.
These are great. Okay, well, I think that's a good time to then move on to your word list. So let's spend another 3. Sorry, could I just double check what time we're going until today?
Yep,
we
so
have,
we'll be finishing at 4:30.
okay, so we have 35 minutes. Okay, good, good, good. Okay, so let's start filling the word list section of your paper. And I think these would be really kind of fun live workshops too, wouldn't it? Like you can just kind of pick like markets and then you kind of set a weekend or something and go out there all together and just spend time just kind of looking and writing down things.
That's a great idea. If anyone does that after today's workshop, we'd love to see what you make, and we'll be giving you some information at the end of today's session on how you can share your work with us. So we'd be really interested to see if anybody does this outside of today's workshop, then you can make sure to tag us on Instagram. So we'll go through that at the end.
I think all these lists are really, really interesting. And even, gym, I mean, there's so much that happens in a gym, and not just the equipment, but the people, and also like different bodies. So I can imagine just, yeah, these people just trying to bench press and just really striving. And then you have these gym bunnies, in their beautiful leggings doing very elegant things. So all these ideas are just really rich with things you can look into. Fast food restaurants. Yeah. I went to McDonald's and I didn't know how to order anymore because everything's on like this giant touch screen and there's nobody there. But that's another thing too, like UX designers or user experience or user interface designers, they would be looking at how are people figuring out these big screens and trying to order things, and then making it easier next time around. Okay. And then I think once you're sort of coming up with a good word list, you can stick with that for a little while longer, or if you want to kind of start sketching out, or you can combine the both. Like I often sort of do the word list and the doodle sketches all at once. So sometimes it'll be, I won't even be thinking, I'd just be looking and seeing, like at the DMV where we were getting our license. I wasn't really choosing what to draw, but rather I was just looking at something, and whenever I saw something really interesting, I would draw it. If it was a little bit complicated to draw, I just write about it. So I think there are things where, so I think, I was like writing down what was on the sign too. I saw a sign that says, "Please do not place children on counter." And I just thought that was so America. Because people do whatever they want here. And then another thing is that people like to sue when they do whatever they want and something bad happens and it's not their fault. So they just kind of go into a lawsuit. So there you find a lot of signage of don't do this, don't do that, don't do this when you come to America. So welcome to America. I also saw it was so funny. A guy crashed into another parked car when he finished his driving test. And there was like, we were just waiting to get in and we heard this crunch, and we saw, so that's kind of what happened. Let me see if I can get the video there. Yeah, so and then you just have all these people come out and look, and he just, liquid started coming out of the car, everything. It was horrendous. Poor guy. And the DMV lady said, well, he's got 2 more tests before he has to redo everything again. Okay, so I think we're getting to that point where we can move into our own picture. So taking that last sheet of 4th paper, You can do it either way. So paper format wise, oh, I disappeared. Oh yeah. You could do it landscape, which is the long sides are on the top. Or you could do it portrait format, where the short side of the paper is at the top. And taking that sheet of paper, I always find that sometimes looking at a big blank piece of paper is like a really hard place to start, because it's just the power of the blank. My mind goes blank. So sometimes I like to start by kind of creating a frame, and by frame, it doesn't have to be a rectangular frame. So as you can see on the slide on the that I have up, I could sometimes start with like a blob or a circle. For the Getty one, if you remember, I started off with a diamond and then split that into quarters to think about 4 certain things. Or if you remember Mauro's piece, he likes to put like the main keyword as a word onto the paper, and then he will start to draw around that word. So let's see. So the next project we have going is we're trying to put up a project. It's about cosplay on the causeway for dog lovers. So we're working with Long Beach City, and we're trying to come up with a dog library park project where we want people to use the library to look at inspirational characters and find characters in the library and research them, and then create a costume for their dogs. And then we have like a cosplay, because they have a little parkway where there's a causeway, like a little pathway. So we could do like a runway show.
This sounds amazing, Kazz. I'm
It would
very
be really,
excited.
yeah.
Dogs in costumes. Brilliant.
Yeah. So I think I could begin with like, I might draw like a big, I'll do Maro style of that. And then again, but you know, you can start with a new theme, but just take what was on your word list and your original things, and then kind of begin to draw around or in your frame or however you want to do it. Again, Doodle is a very free space. So I might kind of start to draw. And here, maybe we can take about 20 minutes or so. So, yeah, and then if you feel like you've got a few things going, please feel free to just upload your images on Padlet. I heard my dog knocking at the door, but he's gone.
He heard us talking about dogs and thought, I cannot be overshadowed by other dogs.
Yeah, every time I say hello on Zoom, he's like, oh, are you talking to me? Is anybody here? Okay.
And also in this 20 minutes, if anybody has got particular questions for Kazz that we can put to her while you're doodling, that would be great. So do just drop any questions that you have in the chat, and we can have a doodle and chat at the same time. And so, Kazz, I've also popped in the chat your website and have just been raving about your visual diaries, which are absolutely incredible. So is that something that you try and do? I know you did kind of a 100-day doodle challenge, but is a visual diary something that you try and keep up with?
I do it less as like as kind of elaborate as the one that I put on my website. And what it was I thought, okay, I really needed to kind of move my hands. There was a period where I was just doing graphic work on the computer, just basically a lot of shapes. So wasn't drawing really, just rectangles and circles and gradients and so forth. And I really thought, oh my gosh, I'm not drawing, I wonder. And then I think I tried to just kind of draw and realize, wow, it's like a muscle. Drawing really is a fine motor skill muscle, but also my brain, everything just felt like weak. And then I wanted to kind of build that muscle again. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to try to do something where I do at least 100 days. And in the end, the project was a little bit ambitious. You know, it became like a chore. So I had to spend like, you know, a good chunk of time every day drawing. And it was really interesting experience because in the beginning, my fingers would hurt, my hand would hurt, my wrist would hurt. And so even just holding a pen for that kind of time required me to retrain even my skin. So but eventually, as the days went by, I think anything you do, if you do it for a good chunk of time, you begin to see yourself change also. So the way I started to lay out my paper, I was getting more experimental. And in the beginning, everything was just kind of blocky, like little section here, little section there. But then eventually I would sort of use like big words in the middle and put images around the side, or I would create sort of a storyline within a sheet of paper. So yeah, it really helped me kind of, you know, even if you sometimes know things in your head, you kind of have to try it out to really see for yourself, oh, okay, yeah, you know, I do tend to do these things and I want to actually free myself from that kind of habit, and try something else, try a different way of working. And that diary helped me to really reconnect with drawing, and I really began to enjoy it. And it's interesting because that drawing was a lot more of kind of, it was a little bit, I don't know, it wasn't like your friendly image to look at, you know, the people are a little bit ugly. And kind of the subject matter covered, they were my everyday, so it was pretty random to somebody who didn't know what was happening. But I don't know if can you hear Freddie barking?
We can. He,
Oh, okay, sorry.
he's so jealous. He wants to be doodling. He's like, let me in.
Wednesdays are really a busy day for him because he barks. All the trash cans get collected on Wednesdays, and so there's a big city like dumpster truck going around. So he goes for that. The garden guy comes to just quickly trim our lawn, and he barks at him. And then my mom bought one of those vacuum hoovers, the Roomba, but like the knockoff version. So every time Roomba sort of wannabe starts to come around, he barks at that. So I'm glad we're doing it at this time because it sort of starts to kick off around now.
He's got a busy day ahead of him.
Yeah, it's very busy. Can we meet Freddie before you sign off? Yeah, I'll try to go grab him so you can see, yeah, where the source, the source code.
I feel like you could do an entire kind of Freddie ethnographic doodle, and it could be his day barking at all of the different things.
Yeah,
and that would
Freddie
be
on a Wednesday, you know.
Yeah.
Definitely, I should do that. Yeah, because I think like these images now, I've kind of gone for a more of a cartoony thing, partly because I realized that when I'm doing a sheet of paper, so what we're working on is something like A4 sheet, or by American paper size 8.5 by 11-inch paper. It's not a lot of space to draw. Sometimes I remember somebody saying, you know, when you're starting, try to use a fat marker or something, because if you have a very fine tip to draw or paint, the tendency is to go very, very small. And then it feels like you need to fill this whole space and it becomes like overwhelming. But sometimes when you have like a blunt pencil or kind of a fat, not too fat, obviously, but just kind of a little bit of a fat felt tip pen, when you're writing and making marks, you begin to see that you can't actually go too deep, unless, you know, and then so you kind of have to start simplifying your designs. And that's another good thing to learn too, you know, how do you edit sometimes. You don't want to go overboard where it just becomes too busy. You don't see anything anymore. Eyes have a certain way of traveling through, and you want to create a nice way for your eye to, even on a small sheet of paper, travel through. So for instance, Maro's piece here, where he puts the focus on the words, is very clever because the eye is always, interestingly, the eye is also drawn to text because your mind wants to interpret all the time. Visuals work great because it's so direct. You look, you understand, oh, you know, a circle with a string attached, balloon, you know, you kind of like begin to see that. But sometimes when brains look at words, it's like balloon, BALLOON. And then you're thinking, okay, combine those words, balloon. Oh, okay. So there's kind of that process, but the mind is always wanting to figure out clues and find answers. So it's always like fun to combine visuals and text because for me, that's something where, yeah, the mind is always doing like, okay, I see the picture. So it's kind of a safe thing to look at and I don't need to do too much, but then I kind of want to challenge my brain. Ooh, DOG, a dog. So yeah, so you can definitely play around with words and image in that kind of sense too. Okay, how are we doing for time? Ooh, kind of getting there, 16 minutes in. So we'll do another maybe 5 more minutes or so.
Sounds good. I also think this kind of doodling is really good for revision as well. I feel like you could do your own ethnographic doodle of a topic that you're revising for GCSEs or A levels, and that kind of turning something that you're learning into an image is also very good for your brain and helps you remember as well.
That's a good point because I also did that for my PhD. So yeah, like sometimes you read things or even like classes and you hear things and you kind of, yeah, when you have that drawn out, it helps me remember that moment when I kind of came across it. Pretty. Okay, guys, he's here.
I'm looking forward to when he emerges from the pond.
Yeah. He's just drinking water. So. But yeah, I think, you know, the idea of doodle is that because it's like a really free space, you can just do it anywhere about anything. You know, like what you say, Liv, about revising, that is so important because you just, when you're revising, you want to kind of find out all the key points and you don't want to reread everything. So
Here he is.
Here he is, Freddie. Yeah.
The VIP of today's workshop.
Yeah. So he's the you hear the sound effect. Yeah, I know. Yeah, don't make me. So, oh, that's an interesting thing about if we're doing a Freddie observation. If you're ever in the States, we have these animals called skunk. And 2 weeks ago, around this day, he got sprayed by one.
Oh no.
So yeah, that could be a whole ethnography in itself too, because you know, what do you do when your dog gets sprayed by a skunk? And if anybody had the unfortunate event of that happening, I've never smelled anything, yeah, worse. Like it makes you think about kind of, you know, warfare and chemical warfare and how powerful and horrendous, and you know, and you can't breathe, it hurts, everything just kind of begins to shut down. And so yeah,
Poor Freddie.
so that could in itself be an ethnographic trauma.
I feel like Freddie needs to do his own doodle to kind of move on from this experience.
I think so, yeah. And he yes, as somebody said, Briny, stinky boy, he still stinks. And apparently if that ever happens, tomato ketchup is a myth. You're not meant to wash the dog with shampoo immediately, but you're meant to make the solution with hydrogen peroxide, baking soda, and dishwash.
I mean, that
soda.
sounds lethal.
Yeah, I didn't have hydrogen peroxide in the house, and also I was too worried about it getting into his eye, because usually skunks, how they attack is that they go on their front legs to raise their hindquarters up and they spray. So usually it gets into the dog's eyes and sort of nose and everything. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But that's the fun. Oh yeah, okay, time. All right, so how are people doing?
So when you're ready, it would be great to see how your doodles are coming along on Padlet. So hopefully we'll see a few of those in a moment. I'll give everyone a few minutes just to start uploading. But I think what we've spoken about today is obviously there's some kind of light-hearted topics that you could use for your theme, but as we've kind of mentioned, keeping a visual diary and doodling in your diary is a really useful way of helping you to kind of deal with experiences in the same way that Freddie will need to deal with the skunk incident. So kind of working visually by doodling, it can help you kind of process things and give you an outlet to express things that maybe writing things down might be difficult for you, and maybe drawing comes a lot more kind of naturally. So that's something worth thinking about. So I am just going to get ready to share my screen so we can have a look at what you've all been up to.
It'd be interesting to know how, we kind of focused on observing as though we're sort of looking from the sky down, but how it felt for you to sort of look at themes, especially if they're themes that, kind of are close to you for whatever reason. So were you able to connect with that theme in a different way than you would have otherwise? So what kind of feeling did this process give you? I'd be kind of curious to know. Ooh, Krispy Kreme.
I'm pleased the airport has come along so well.
Oh, hi, Freddie. Okay. Do you want to see too? Okay, look.
And I like the way you've already kind of thought creatively here about the word airport and the typography and incorporating the kind of aeroplane into airport. That's really clever. It reminds me of a workshop that we run for our kind of year one and applicants to our graphics courses, looking at kind of different words and how you can think creatively to do something with the lettering to represent how a certain word kind of makes you feel, or the iconography that it makes you think of. So you're already one step ahead there. That is amazing. So really well done for that. On the zoo, yes. Oh, I love that.
Oh. And here I like, just kind of a mixture of image and words, like, the howling. Oh, it just kind of adds to that. And I love how the ooh is going upwards too.
That's brilliant. And then I saw one of the doodles from earlier. This is very impressive.
Wow. Oh.
I wish that was me right now. It's very hot here today in Norwich, so I could be doing with the ice cream. And the gym. This is generally the face I'm pulling in the gym for sure. So many great examples, everyone. Oh,
the sky.
I feel like this could be Freddie.
It could be, yeah. That's what I'm sure that's how he'd like to see himself, with the invisibility, invincible cape.
Yes. I love this idea. All of
that's
the different
nice
things.
too. Yeah, because I mean, it seems like, like crepe, it's a very specific object, isn't it? But then you can kind of see that it actually requires tools, and what are the kind of the consistency of the batter, and what is the outcome, and what goes into it. So even though you can choose to focus your attention on an object, there's a lot of things that you get that can surround it. So this is really interesting.
And it's useful to think about, you know, recipe books or even online. Often they're accompanied by illustrations. So illustration is almost definitely a commodity in industry worldwide, globally, in all sorts of different industries. Everybody needs to visualize what they're talking about in one way or another. So, you know, thinking about something like crepes and how you would represent it in a recipe book is really interesting. Let's have a look at, oh, hair, incredible.
And, you know, I think it's good practice to be able to do both image and text for your studies, but also like even in meetings, sometimes, you know, you have, not everybody's like able to kind of capture what's being said, and to be able to make a presentation or case against something with images, it just brings people on board, you know, so quickly, so easily. And I think in my experience, it's really helped. It's been helpful because it's like, oh, that's what you're talking about. Oh yeah. Or if you say, okay, we want to create a park that's like this image. And then, you know, immediately you're already thinking, oh, okay, it's a place for a lot of people to come do different things. It's not just for kids, but it could be a girl on a supboard where she feels very happy to just come up and paddle up. You can even go snorkeling, so the water is clear and interesting, and it supports a lot of wildlife. But you could also come with, you know, as a family and do barbecue. So if you're pitching for a park design idea and say, these are the kind of the people we want the park to be used by, it brings people, you know, and it's like reading, okay, we want BBQ, we want SUP. Bullet points are kind of easy, but this would be like, oh yeah, here's the money. You know?
I also really like, there's tiny details in this that I think are really worth kind of pointing out. And the thing that I noticed immediately is how you've got the really nice kind of ripples on the water, and then you've again incorporated that into the heading there, and it's little touches like that that can really make an image. So really well done for adding that in, and big shout out to the fish. Love the fish. That's great. Let's have a look at what
Oh,
else.
they're really good.
So we've got petting zoo. Yes. We've got so many animals. Loving this. This is brilliant.
Yeah.
More poop. You just can't go wrong with the poop in an illustration.
You said it. You got it.
I also really just love that there's this tiny face popping out, which I think is from an entirely separate drawing. But I really enjoy that. Well done, everyone. So keep uploading them. It would be nice to see some more. Ah, so we're in the coffee shop, aren't we, Kazz? We're in Costa.
Yeah.
Lovely.
That's brilliant.
Some
That's
really nice line work on here,
yeah.
actually.
And see, like, this is something where I would sort of, yeah, go to Google, because I wouldn't remember what the coffee grinder machine would look like. I kind of have a very vague idea, but I might need to, you know, just cross-reference my fuzzy memory with what it is. So yeah, this is like really good.
Brilliant. Oh, another one coming in.
Tower. Oh, is this Canary Wharf?
Looks that way.
Brilliant.
And I think that's so true, Kazz, about kind of searching. There's nothing wrong with looking up images for reference. When we did a little run through of this workshop with Kazz, Nuala and myself, and Kazz was mentioning about using Google Images, because you think you know what something looks like, but that you just can't quite piece it together in your mind. So I'd forgotten entirely what a butterfly really looked like. And there's so many different types, and it can help with your creativity to look at images for reference. So it's absolutely fine to do that.
It's funny, isn't it? Because when you kind of think, oh, you have to draw as though, yeah, like looking for images feels like you're cheating, but it's not, you know, it's part of your research. And And when you are making images, you know, you kind of have to tread between what is convincing and real, because otherwise it's really hard to convey what the focus of the conversation is. Ink blob. Oh, I see.
I love this. It's like an accident, but it turned out really well. I kind of like the ink blob. I sort of love that when you're working with things like ink, and how, so we do something with animation or prospective animation students and animation students once they're here on the course. So a big part of character design, they often work with ink and paint to make just blobs on a page. And then once they've dried, you can look at those interesting shapes, those accidents that have happened, and how you might turn them into a feature of a character. So hopefully you heard a little bit about that with Dan Kelby last week, if you did join last week. If you didn't, you can catch up on the recording. But always worth thinking about those kind of spontaneous moments that you think are a mistake, but that actually can turn into something new and exciting in a drawing that you're working on. So I think there's a tendency when you're kind of at school and you're working on something and you're taught to draw so exactly and precisely, to be a lot more loose with how you draw, and to not be upset if something goes wrong in a drawing, and see how you can turn that around into a positive and make something more out of it. Lovely. The Abbey Gardens.
That's amazing. So this could be like, yeah, a map, illustrated map for the Abbey, and you can sort of pitch this and say, I think you need something where the visitors can kind of know where they're walking and the points that they want to see. Fantastic. I think we are close to wrapping up, and I know that the gardener's here, so you'll hear a lot of barking. But I think, sorry, Liv, I forwarded the list of some useful things to maybe look at for people, the books. I don't have them here with me there in Norwich. Did you have that list?
I can absolutely drop that in the chat for everyone, but also I did see that someone had asked about putting links and things on the Padlet board, so we can also do that after we finish the call today, so I can upload all of the links into there. But everyone should get the recording and then the worksheet, which we'll be producing to sit alongside this workshop, so you can refer back to the links that will be included in there as well. So what we'll do is we'll pop them on the Padlet board, so you've got them kind of immediately after today. Otherwise, if I put them in the chat, they'll disappear forever when we hang up. So I'll pop them on the Padlet board for you. So I can see I've stopped sharing my screen, but before we do finish up today, I just want to show you. So someone has kind of neatened up their poster, which now, like using that kind of idea that you've mentioned, Kazz, hopefully it will.
Ooh. Yeah, brilliant.
Over that, so that's amazing. Great. So just a reminder for everyone, if you didn't want us to share your work today from the Padlet board, please do just write a note in there, or let us know by contacting us at studentrecruitment@nua.ac.uk. Otherwise, we will be sharing all of your amazing work because it's brilliant. And then I'm just going to check the chat to see if we've had any other questions for you, Kazz.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
And yeah, by all means, please feel free to reach out. Should I put my Instagram handle here or something?
It will be in the worksheet. So okay. I've stuck it in there for you, Kazz. And also we've dropped your website into the chat several times today. So hopefully people will be able to find you on there. Because I've mentioned all of the amazing work that you have on your website. So do make sure to check out Kazz after today. But just to kind of finish up, to round things off, I do want to remind you that we've got some really amazing workshops coming up in the remainder of the summer school series. So next week we've got the incredible Kat Gundry-Beck. She's very exciting. So she studied photography at Norwich University of the Arts. She She has produced work photographing the Northern Lights when she lived in Norway, and she currently lives in Iceland. And she is an amazing lifestyle photographer, and she is doing a whole workshop all around fashion photography. So do make sure to check that out next week. If you're unsure if you've booked on, or if you want to have a look at the other workshops that are coming up, you can check out the website. So Nuala will drop the link in the chat for you. And we're also offering the very exciting opportunity to get your very own NUA certificate as part of the summer school series. So in order to get your hands on one of these certificates, you will need to send us 3 outcomes from workshops that you've attended, and you'll need to send them over to us by email. So that's studentrecruitment@nua.ac.uk. So do make sure that you send us 3 examples. So they could be the work that you've produced during the workshop. So anything that you've uploaded to Padlet today would be perfect. But also, as we mentioned earlier, if you do something outside of this workshop, so say you go and kind of observe a park at the weekend, and then you put together a more kind of finished ethnographic doodle, we would love to see how you've taken it further after today's workshop. So that would also kind of qualify as one of the 3 outcomes that you submit to us. And then, as I've already mentioned, we do want to see what you're making and creating as part of the summer school. So if you share your work online, on Instagram, for example, we'd love for you to tag us so we can reshare it for you. So we have a specific Norwich University of the Arts outreach account. So it's @NUA Outreach. And we also have the Take Your Place account. So that's @takeyourplace_HE. So do make sure to tag us in there, and hopefully Nuala will drop those in the chat for you. But otherwise, I think that's everything I wanted to mention, aside from a huge thank you for Kazz for getting up very early to run this workshop for us all the way from Los Angeles. So thank you very much, Kazz, for leading today's session.
Thank you. The gardener and has arrived. So Freddie is going bananas. So I had to mute myself. But thank you so much, and Liv and Nuala, for organizing this, and everyone for sharing the time and this kind of really fun and wonderful space together. So I really, really appreciate it. I hope, these kind of doodles might begin to creep into your notes and your future, because it just is, for me, such a helpful way to go back and, relive my whole life again. So I hope that it brings a little bit of that joy to you as well, and that this would be a helpful thing for your future as well. So for your studies, for work, for communication. It's just such a wonderful skill to have. So please just kind of feel free to drop into these kind of doodling spaces and carry on with that journey as well. So thank you.
Thank you. We've had some great messages in the chat, so lots of thank yous for you, Kazz, and also a big shout out, a well done to Freddie for being such a cool dude. Possibly my favorite message of today's workshop. And as Nuala has mentioned, we'll be emailing out the recording and worksheet within a week or 2, so do just keep an eye out for those. They'll be emailed to you directly. But otherwise, thank you all so much for joining us. It's been great to get you involved in all of this exciting doodling, and hopefully we'll see you online next week for the fashion photography session. So thank you everyone, and see you again soon. So bye.